today, lesson number 44. And again, this is a little bit of a long one. I'll tell you what, though, this is one of those kind of breakthrough days in the lesson. We've had one other that I can recall so far where there's something pretty magical that could happen as you do the lesson. I love that it's happening on a weekend. So just as a review of what we've covered this past week and a half, my holiness blesses the world. There's nothing my holiness cannot do. My holiness is my salvation. That was last week. We ended the week with I am blessed as a child of God. And that's how we ended the week last week on Friday. And again, just remembering that in the context of this course, holiness refers to the fact that you're perfect, whole, and complete. Perfect, whole, and complete. That's how God made you. That's how you are. If you feel that you're anything different than that, that's your egoic mind talking. We're going to touch on that a little bit today as well. Then we started out on Monday with the lesson of God goes with me wherever I go. And that was Tuesday. I'm sorry. I forgot that Monday was Labor Day. Then on Wednesday, God is my strength. Vision is his gift. God is my strength. Vision is his gift. And then yesterday's lesson was this one. God is my source. I cannot see apart from him. God is my source. I cannot see apart from him. And then just a couple quick key points that came out of that. You know, we talked about the idea that knowledge is not the same as perception. And so knowledge is knowledge. Perception is perception. It's our spin on what we learn or what we see or what is. And so knowing that there's a distinction, then also the Holy Spirit is a mediator between perception and knowledge. We talked about the truth in yesterday's lesson. We're going to touch on that a little bit more today because it goes on to say this, that knowledge represents the truth. Whoops, I went too far. And let's go back a slide. Here we go. Perception is based on false ideas that separations exist. That's our egoic mind, again, thinking that we have to separate ourselves from everybody else. Thinking that that's protecting us, thinking that our egoic mind knows what's best for us, and it doesn't. And then finally, the Holy Spirit is your inner guide for the truth. And if the goal is to really operate and come from the truth, that's where we have to get really clear on what our inner compass might be, if you will, that North Star, that thing that guides us. And we would just assert that from the context of in a course of miracles, course in miracles, it would be that Holy Spirit. It's that inside spirit that you have. And so that takes us to today, which is lesson 44. And lesson 44 is this. It says, God is the light in which I see. God is the light in which I see. And I'm going to read a little bit of the manuscript of the lesson. I'm going to jump into the explanation, and we'll come back and I'll lay out the lesson for you. So we'll cover that in the next 18 minutes or so. So it says this. Today we are continuing the idea for yesterday, which was that God is my source and I cannot see apart from God, yesterday's lesson. But we're going to add another dimension to it. You cannot see in darkness and you cannot see in light. So that's kind of the first statement in this. So I can't see in darkness and I cannot make it light. You cannot see in darkness and you cannot make it light. Let me say it correctly. You can make darkness and then think you see in darkness. But light reflects life and therefore an aspect of creation. So we're going to read that again because I think this is one of the most profound statements that we've had so far. So it says you cannot see in darkness and you cannot make light. You can make darkness and then think you see in darkness. But light reflects life and is therefore an aspect of creation. So creation and darkness cannot coexist. That's a great statement. Creation and darkness cannot coexist. So, but light and life must go together, being but different aspects of creation. So in order to see with true vision, you must recognize that light is within, not without. I don't know if you remember a number of lessons ago, we talked about you might start seeing that inner light, that light around people. That's true vision versus just seeing. And I think that was about 3 weeks ago that we touched on this briefly. We're going to go deeper in this today. So you do not see with true vision outside yourself, nor is the equipment for seeing with true vision outside of you. An essential part of this equipment is the light that makes seeing with true vision possible. Let me say that again. An essential part of this equipment for this lesson that we're going to start to uncover is that the light that makes seeing with true vision possible. This light is with you always, making vision possible in every circumstance. Now, let me jump into a little bit of the explanation because I threw a lot at you in two little paragraphs. So it says this: God is cause and creation is God's effect. So God is cause and creation is God's effect. Two aspects of creation are light and life. God is your source and is the light within you. You cannot see darkness and you cannot make light because you are light. The source of all light is God. Light reflects life and is an aspect of creation. So being light, you can only extend the light that is within you. Creation is the extension of what you truly are. When God creates, God extends the totality of what God is. Nothing is held back. God being light can only extend what God is, which is light. Cause and effect are actually two sides of one whole. The whole is creation, which is all God created as God created it. I've heard that before. Now, life reflects truth. Life reflects truth and should not be confused with what we perceive to be the physical life associated with our physical bodies. Life is truth and death is the false or an illusion. Just like the false cannot be real, its counterpart, which is death, cannot be real. Both the false and the death appear to exist only within the sleeping minds of the split-minded who perceive themselves to be separate and different from their true source. So A Course in Miracles makes a distinction between creation and making. Both creating and making are empowered by mind. Only mind, not some outside force beyond our control, is the power source for both creating and making. Now, creation is the existence, or creation is the extension, let me say correctly, of the oneness of all that is. The oneness of all that is. It is an expansion of the totality. When God creates, he extends or gives all to all. There is no separation. Instead, there is merely an expansion of the one self. Creation is in the whole and is real. Now, making, which is separate from creation, arises from the egoic belief in separation, and therefore it's based on lack and limitation. Since lack and limitation cannot exist within the mind of God, making is not real. Making is merely a delusional fantasy of the split-minded. With the egoic mind that believes in limitation, lack, and separation, those beliefs are empowered by your mind to make up the false world of individuated, private perception. That misperception becomes the provisional reality of the split-minded. Change those beliefs, and what you perceive as your provisional reality must also change then accordingly. So just as both the true and the false cannot coexist, light and darkness cannot coexist. Yet because of the creative power of mind, your egoic beliefs can imagine darkness and then pretend that you can see in it. Such images are your mind's imagination and are not your true reality. These images that you see with the egoic eyes are not real. It's what we create from our ego. Now, because beliefs are empowered by the holder's mind to make images that appear as the holder's provisional reality, the split-minded mistake these non-real images to be their personal reality. The split-minded identify themselves with the ego's beliefs in limitation, lack, and separation. And because of this erroneous identification, you perceive that any abandonment of those erroneous beliefs would result in loss of your own identity. In actuality, abandoning those erroneous beliefs is the reclaiming of your divine birthright. So let go of it. Just let go of it. To have true vision, you must recognize that the light is within and not without. Since light comes from your source, which is within you, this makes vision possible regardless of the circumstances that your egoic mind has imagined. Vision is the release from your split-minded identification with limitation, lack, and separation. It is your release from your private hell and the reawakening of the Son of God. And that's what true vision is. Now, you remain as God created you, perfect, whole, and complete. You are part of the indivisible oneness of all that is. So let me go back and talk about the lesson then on how we're going to work on this through the weekend. So lesson 44, God is the light in which I see. Today we're going to attempt to reach that light. This is why I said this is a major lesson today. For this purpose, will we use a form of exercise which has been suggested before. So we've done this format before, which we will utilize increasingly as we move forward now. It is a particularly difficult form for the undisciplined mind, and it represents a major goal of mind training. So understand that the format I'm going to give you is one we've used before, and it's one that's very difficult if we're undisciplined in the way we operate in our lessons. So it's about creating that discipline. This form of exercise requires precisely what the untrained mind lacks. Yet training must be accomplished if you are to see with true vision. So this is going to be possibly very difficult, very foreign. It won't feel right, but that's what we have to do to get to that spot of true vision. Now, have at least 3 practice periods each day. And I'm going to ask that we do this each day through the weekend. Or maybe take one of the other days of the weekend and go back to a lesson you've maybe missed, or you didn't really do it because you can always go back and repeat and build from that. So let's just do that over the next 3 days. Doing this as of today, though, is the one lesson. So let's see. Have at least 3 practice periods today, each lasting 3 to 5 minutes. A longer time is highly recommended, but only if you find the time slipping by with little or no sense of strain. So you can go longer than 3 to 5 minutes if it's not creating some unrest or unease for you. So the form of practice we will use today is the most natural and easy one in the world for the trained mind, just as this form of practice seems to be the most unnatural and difficult for the untrained mind. And again, no right or wrong. It's just if you have difficulty with it, you have an untrained mind for this, and you can train it. So your mind is no longer wholly untrained. We've been working on training it through these lessons this last 40-some days. You are quite ready to learn the form of exercise we will be using today, but you may find that you will be encountering strong resistance. Now, the reason for that strong resistance is very simple. While you practice in this way, you leave behind everything that you now believe, and all the thoughts that you have made up are left behind. So properly speaking, this is the release from hell. Yet perceived through the ego's eyes, this leaving behind everything that you now believe is a loss of identity and a descent into hell. So your egoic mind is going to fight you. It's really going to fight you. So if you can stand aside from your ego by ever so little, you will have no difficulty in recognizing that ego's opposition and the ego's fears are meaningless. So you'll see it if you could just step aside briefly as you're working on this. You might find it helpful to remind yourself from time to time that to reach light is to escape from darkness. If you take notes on this, that's a great statement. To reach light, you escape from darkness. Whatever you may believe to the contrary, that is true. God is the light in which you see. You are attempting to reach God in reaching light. So begin the practice period by repeating today's idea that God is the light in which I see with your eyes open. And then close them slowly, repeating the idea that God is the light in which I see several times more. Then, as you close your eyes slowly, try to sink into your mind. It's a little bit of a meditative state, letting go every kind of interference and intrusion by quietly sinking past any interference or intrusion. So just go past it, let it go. Whatever's showing up, just go past it and go deeper. Now, your mind cannot be stopped in this unless you choose to stop your mind. So you can move past interference and those distractions if you choose. Now, your mind is merely taking its natural course in reaching for the light. Try to observe your passing thoughts without involvement and slip quietly by those passing thoughts. Just say, I'll come back to you later. I'm going here now. While no particular approach is advocated from this form of exercise, what is needful in a sense of the importance of what you're doing, this exercise's inestimable value is to you, and an awareness that you are attempting something very holy. It's to get to that spot where you go past anything else that might distract you, just be. So just understand that this is a big one. Salvation is your happiest accomplishment. Salvation is also the only one that has any meaning, because salvation is the only one that has any real use to us all. So if resistance rises in any form, pause and repeat today's idea that God is a light in which I see, keeping your eyes closed unless you are aware of fear. In that case, if fear shows up while you're doing this, you will probably find it more reassuring to open your eyes briefly. Try, however, to return to the exercise with your eyes closed as soon as possible. So fear creeps in as I'm going past those intrusions and distractions, and there's fear. Remember, it's your egoic mind fighting you, because you're really working to change that. Open your eyes, restate this, and go work back to that meditative state. Now, if you're doing the exercises correctly, you should experience some sense of relaxation and even a feeling that you're approaching, if not actually entering, into light. This is the coolest part of this whole thing, right? So done correctly, it should create a form of relaxation and a feeling that you're actually approaching the light. Now try to think of light formless and without limit as you pass by the thoughts of this world, and do not forget, the thoughts of this world cannot hold you to the world unless you give the thoughts of the world the power to do so. You can slip by them unless you give it that power. Now, throughout the day, repeat the idea that God is a light in which I see. Do it often. Repeat it often for yourself, with your eyes open or closed. It doesn't matter for the shorter exercises. Do whatever seems better for you at the time. But do not forget the idea that God is the light in which I see. Above all, be determined not to forget today. Don't forget to do this. Now, one of the things I was thinking about with this, and I mentioned this a while ago, was you could put this as a repeating reminder on your phone, like a little appointment, and you could have it be maybe the top of every hour, that it would just pop up and it would be God is the light in which I see. And it would be a good reminder of what the lesson is. I use that a lot for reminding myself of things, but also then working on things like this, especially something like this that might be fought pretty hard by your egoic mind. So just be prepared for that and set yourself up for success. So with that, I'm going to ask if there's any questions, thoughts, or comments. It's a deep one today, but it's a pivotal one. And so I'm glad that it hit Friday for us. Any questions?
I think it goes along with the idea that there is no good or bad. It just is, and that's a really hard one to wrap your mind around. But
it is, isn't it? There is that you can't create. Darkness. You can't see darkness. We create it that way. You're absolutely right. Good or bad. It's the labels we give things, isn't it? And it's the labels we give them that give them its power from us, or lets us keep our power. So as you go into the exercise, it's about staying in what you choose to be, just simply to relax and be with the idea that God is the light in which I see. It's a good comment. Thank you, Barb. So one quick thing. So Monday next week, we have Mega Camp. We are going to do these at 9:00. We start with the huddles in the morning at Mega Camp at 9:30. So just know that next week we will stay in our normal schedule. I believe, though, when we get to the following week, we're going to start Ignite, and I'm going to move this to 8 a.m. So I want to give you a little bit of a heads up that we're going to do this at 8 a.m. Starting the following week, the following Monday. So, just if you have to adjust, just do what you need to, and we'll go from there. So have a great weekend, everybody. Thanks so much for being here today. And work on this lesson. This is a great one. God is the light in which I see. We'll see you all. Have a great weekend.